Hi boys and girls, happy Friday! It would be the last school day of the week today, and on Monday it would be a bank holiday, so we wouldn't have any school. But at the moment we have no school, so we have the whole time at home to have fun. Now, today we are going to read Mr. Dizzy, and this is what Mr. Dizzy looks like. He's rather unusual looking, isn't he? I wonder what makes poor Mr. Dizzy dizzy. Let's find out. Mr. Dizzy. Mr. Dizzy was, to be quite honest, not very clever. If you were to ask Mr. Dizzy what was the opposite of black, he'd say, the opposite of black is pink, which is not. What is the opposite of black? Do you know? White. Well done. Black and white, they're opposites. He lived in a house on a hill, which he built himself. A not very clever house. One of Mr. Dizzy's problems was that he lived in a country where everybody else was terribly clever. Cleverland. Even the birds were clever in Cleverland. Everything and everybody in Cleverland was clever. You'll never see a worm reading a book anywhere else but Cleverland. Poor Mr. Dizzy, everything around him was so clever it made his head spin. That's funny, isn't it, seeing a worm read a book and a worm wear glasses? One morning, Mr. Dizzy was out for a walk when he met a pig. "What's big and grey and has big ears and a trunk?" said the clever pig to Mr. Dizzy. A mouse?" said Mr. Dizzy. The pig laughed sarcastically at Mr. Dizzy and went off shaking his head. No, Mr. Dizzy got that answer wrong. He did. Then Mr. Dizzy met an elephant, a clever elephant. "What's small and furry and likes cheese?" the elephant asked cleverly. A pig," replied Mr. Dizzy. The clever elephant laughed down his trunk. "A pig," he trumpeted. "A pig, you silly man." And off he went. Poor Mr. Dizzy. Mr. Dizzy decided he didn't want to talk to anyone else that day, so he went off for a walk in the wood where he knew he wouldn't meet anyone. He felt very miserable about not being clever, and as he walked along, a tear trickled down his cheek. Ah, poor Mr. Dizzy. He's very sad. Then, in the middle of the wood, he came across a well. Little did Mr. Dizzy know that it was a wishing well. The day was warm, and so he decided to take a drink of water from the well. Mr. Dizzy drank deeply, but he was still unhappy. "Oh, I wish I could be clever," he sighed. Maybe his wish will come true. That's brilliant. He doesn't even know it's a wishing well, and he's just made a wish. Little did Mr. Dizzy know that whoever drinks deeply from the water at the wishing well will see his wish come true. And Mr. Dizzy had wished that he could be clever, and his wish had come true. He was clever, but he didn't know it. Not yet. On the way home, Mr. Dizzy came across the elephant and the pig he had met earlier. They were telling each other about how they had made Mr. Dizzy look silly by asking him a question he couldn't answer. They were giggling and sniggering about it when they saw Mr. Dizzy approaching from the wood. "Here he comes again," giggled the clever pig. "Let's ask him another question," sniggered the clever elephant. Oh, this time Mr. Dizzy's going to get it right, because he's clever now, isn't he? After making that wish at the wishing well. Mr. Dizzy came up to them. "Tell us," said the clever pig, trying to keep a straight face, "what's white and woolly and goes baa?" "Why, a sheep, of course," said Mr. Dizzy. The pig and the elephant were amazed. To tell the truth, so too was Mr. Dizzy. He suddenly felt very, very clever. It was not an unpleasant feeling. He's delighted with himself. He feels clever. "Tell us," said the clever elephant, "what has 4 tails, 4 legs, a tail, and goes woof?" "How easy," replied Mr. Dizzy. "Do you know? What has 4 legs, a tail, and goes woof?" "A dog, you're right." And that's what Mr. Dizzy said. A dog, of course. The clever pig and the clever elephant couldn't understand how Mr. Dizzy had become so clever in one morning. Look at his smile. It's nearly reaching all the way up to his forehead. He's so very, very happy. Mr. Dizzy couldn't understand how he'd become so clever in one morning. But we know how he'd become so clever in one morning, don't we? We do, because he went to the wishing well and made a wish. "Now, let me ask you a question," said Mr. Dizzy to the pig. "You," grunted the pig rudely, "you ask me a question? Don't be ridiculous. There's no question you could ask me that I couldn't answer." "Really?" smiled Mr. Dizzy. "Well then, can you tell me what's fat and pink and goes a tissue, a tissue?" "What's fat and pink and goes a tissue, repeated the pig, looking worried. "There's nothing that goes fat and pink and goes a tissue, said the pig. The pig looks a bit worried. Don't think he knows the answer. "Nothing, eh?" said Mr. Dizzy, and he tickled the pig's nose. A tissue, sneezed the pig. He got the pig there. "The answer is you," said Mr. Dizzy. "You're fat and pink, and you're going a tissue, The clever pig looked down right, if not down left, miserable. Now Mr. Dizzy feels very clever. He tricked the pig. I wonder if he's going to trick the elephant. Mr. Dizzy turned to the elephant, who accidentally had stopped sniggering. "Now," said Mr. Dizzy, "let me ask you a question. What's large and grey and goes doppet, doppet?" "What's large and grey and goes doppet, doppet?" repeated the elephant, looking worried. "There's nothing that's large and grey that goes doppet, doppet." He's very confused. I think it's going to be the elephant again. "Oh yes, there is," grinned Mr. Dizzy. "There certainly is something that's large and grey and goes doppet, doppet." And he tied a knot in the clever elephant's trunk. "Doppet, doppet," cried the elephant, who wanted to say stop it, but couldn't talk properly with a knot in his trunk. Mr. Dizzy grinned and went home. "I depose do think dat is funny," said the elephant. And it is funny. Yes, because at the end of that story, Mr. Dizzy was the clever one, and the pig and the elephant were not. Now, today, boys and girls, our rhyme is pat a cake. So we're going to pretend to make a cake, and we'll count to 3, and then we'll say it together. Are you ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Pat a cake, baker's man. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. Pat it and roll it and mark it with a B and put it in the oven for baby and me. Great, everybody. So on Monday, it's a bank holiday, so we won't have a story then. So I'll read you another story on Tuesday, and I'll say another poem then too. I'm looking forward to seeing you all on Tuesday. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll talk to you then. Goodbye.